I was actually in healing, an osteopath and a physiotherapist. And when I went into the army as an army education officer, I saw someone who had been out in the Far East and had treatment, and I was just amazed at what happened, to that particular person. And it sort of set things going. I thought I must find out more about this. And hence that's when I first started to investigate, in the Far East, this particular system of acupuncture. And so it sort of grew from there. As time went by, I was fortunate enough to be taken on by two masters, because in those days there weren't schools as we know them. A master would take an apprentice and would virtually hand down, a lot of their knowledge and their information. And so then for many, many years, I followed the masters around wherever they went and got my knowledge that way.
This was in China?
In China, in Japan, in Hong Kong, in Singapore, in Korea, in Sri Lanka.
In what years are we talking about? In the 20s or 30s?
No, in the late 30s, 40s, no, wait a minute, 30s. Be somewhere around about 1945, something like that.
What was the world's opinion of acupuncture at that time? Was it well known, or did people?
No, it was not well known at all, especially in the Western world. No, and particularly in England. I mean, it was just as alien as what it was in America, prior to Nixon going to China. I was over here then, lecturing at schools and universities and talking about acupuncture, and no one had got any idea what I was talking about. And then it suddenly hit this tremendous blaze of glory, and then it became, everybody knew all about it overnight, sort of thing. So it was very much like that in the Western world. In Europe, and particularly in England, because in England, I mean, they're less liberal than you are in America. And so everything was poo-pooed and, just crazy. And many people wanted to lock me up in those early days. But
really, you met a lot of resistance in England when you were?
Oh, tremendous. Yeah. I mean, I can always recall, one of the physicians in Guy's Hospital was asked what his thoughts were on acupuncture, and he said, you just as well get a hedgehog and, roll on it. It has no basis of any sort of information at all. It's just mumbo jumbo. And that was a quote from somebody that apparently was pretty well educated. So you can guess what the average doctor and the average person was saying about it. But then as time went by, as I was in practice, then we were getting results that made doctors stop and look and listen. And it's virtually the patients themselves that actually started to convince the skeptics that there really was something to it.
That's what I was going to ask you. How did you stand up in the face of all this opposition? It really
because I believed 100% in what I was doing. It had a natural foundation. It had a solid foundation. It had been practiced for over 2,000 years, following natural laws. And it was unchanged. Man or woman cannot improve upon nature, although one keeps trying. And this was a system of medicine that had withstood all that. And it still came out on top because, again, it's a natural system of healing. And you can't get better.
So let's go into that foundation then. How many thousands of years are we talking about, and what are those natural laws that you just mentioned?
2,000 years for this particular system of medicine, and practiced classically, the same today as it was then. Although again, you see, the Westerner wants to bring in laser acupuncture, electroacupuncture, always wanting to improve on something, but it's all a load of rubbish. You can see what man and woman does with nature while they're trying to improve upon it outside. We can't even breathe the air that is there. We can't even drink the water, and that's man's improvement upon nature. And fortunately, you know, a lot of the classical five-element acupuncture has been bastardized by man trying to bring in this, that and the other. But fortunately, it still exists in its true essence, is what it is that we firmly teach and believe in. And of course it will go on forevermore. It cannot be improved upon. So what's happening now, you see, is the results are speaking for themselves. We don't need to speak about it. The patients will speak about it. Then people listen.
What makes five-element acupuncture different than other acupuncture practices?
Well, because it's based, again, as I said, on natural laws. It's not on fashion or fad or fantasy or an idea which was, you know, valid 2,000 years ago is now discarded. No, none of that is discarded. It's on a solid foundation. The reason why many other forms of acupuncture have grown as a result, most of it, is when Mao Zedong reiterated and allowed acupuncture to be practiced again in China, whereas for a long period of time it was forbidden. And so what they did there was a form of symptomatic acupuncture, which gave results temporarily. But the system of acupuncture we're talking about is dealing with the cause of disease, not the symptoms. And the other type of acupuncture extensively practiced in China was basically symptomatic, which is a type of acupuncture that, you know, has its place. It has some good attached to it, like taking aspirin for a headache. Can't condemn aspirins. But if you're getting headaches every day, you don't take aspirin every day. You find out why you're getting the headaches. So it's on that same basis, you know.
It seems kind of strange that Mao had a lot to do with suppressing or changing acupuncture in China, and Richard Nixon had a lot to do with opening it up to the world.
Yes, it's like a double-edged sword. Again, Nixon did a lot for acupuncture in the United States of America. There are countless numbers of people now that are living full and healthy and happy lives due to the fact that they have had acupuncture treatment. So that is the good side, and the negative side, of course, is that there's still a vast amount of what I would call bastardized acupuncture being practiced in America. And this is a place where it'll thrive, because it's all head stuff, all academic, and this system of medicine isn't. This system of medicine comes from within, and it comes from nature. So we don't have anything new to discover. It is all there. We have to familiarize ourselves with nature, understand nature, not from here, but from here. And then we can start to use these natural laws to assist the body to overcome the disease.
Mm-hmm. Would you like another glass of water? A little drink? You want to pull back a little bit? So maybe you could tell me a little bit about five elements in a little more detail. And it's just a general, but a little more detail. But what are the five elements? And
Well, generally, what five-element acupuncture is really is a method of treating the individual. First of all, we don't treat people. Every person is a unique individual. So if we treat patient A with migraine and we get patient B with migraine, we don't treat them anything like the same. Two totally different people, but they have a similar symptom. But we don't treat the symptoms, we're treating the people. And then we treat the cause of the symptom, which again, in both cases, can be totally different. So By using the 5 elements, which are fire, earth, metal, water and wood, we are then able to get the balance which nature gets outside. If you get too much water, you get flooding. You get too little water, you get drought. Get too much sun, everything's burned up. And the same thing happens within us. It sounds a bit strange, first of all, but it's true. We have organs within us that are related to those elements. And we find patients that mentally are flooding, tremendous fear of drowning, tremendous fear, agoraphobia, claustrophobia we call it, fear of going out, fear of heights. That's abnormal. That's an imbalance. And as we correct that imbalance, you get people that hate and they can't love each other. They're cold inside. You get people who are tremendously rich and they've got everything they need and you never see them laugh. There's no joy, there's no happiness, there's no spirit, there's no purpose. They're just existing. And we are becoming very much like a nation of robots. We're all living from here and we're all living materially. And we need to stop occasionally just to realise that we have that ability to experience that God-given joy that's almost indescribable within us. And that supersedes everything that is material, everything that is academic, everything that is power, position, stature, ego, all those sort of things. It don't mean a thing. We're playing a game at the expense of living X number of years, and yet in actual fact, the joy and the beauty and the love that we should be able to share with each other. Many people go to the grave without even knowing about it. And when you go back to ancient tribes, even Indians, and go back to many ancient cultures, that was what they held uppermost. It wasn't the number of calendar years they lived, it was the joy, the family, the unity, the happiness, the laughter. How much laughter did you hear here? Nothing. When I was a child, laughter was commonplace. Playing in the street with your parents and everybody was laughing. Though you hadn't got a pair of shoes to put on your feet. But that didn't matter. What matters now is getting a pair of shoes and a nice suit and pursuing all these things and ignoring the gifts that God gave us. And that's out there.
So you don't give the modern society high marks right now?
Don't give...
Modern society high marks?
Not at all, no. No, I'm afraid not. I mean, there's a lot of technological advances, one must admit. And, we can even go to the moon now and go on space rockets and all of that sort of thing. And you can communicate with computers to people on other ends of the world. But where's the laughter? Where's the joy? Where's the fun? Where's the idea of going to bed and saying, wow, that was a great day. That was wonderful. People don't even stop now to even look at a flower. They don't look at anything. Well, they do, they look, but they don't see. We're in too much of a hurry. We don't even stop to see each other. We form an opinion on somebody by just looking at them. If you could see the God within that person, see the essence and the joy within that person, wow, what an experience.
So is that what you try to do when you're diagnosing someone, is try to find out what the real problem is spiritually or mentally or even physically?
Exactly, spiritually, mentally and physically. See, diseases, although many of them exhibit on a physical level, very few are. They come from a mental or spiritual level. Mm-hmm. And so you've got to find out the level which the disease is coming from. And then you treat the body and the mind and the spirit. Mm-hmm. I mean, we know this for hundreds of people that really, really suffer terribly. And you go through all the modern technological investigations, and the doctor says, can't find anything wrong.
So I guess diagnosis then is a real important aspect of what you do.
One of the most important.
So I guess that brings us to pulses.
Well, pulses is one part.
Could you
The pulses are important. Yeah, but we get it from colour, sound, odour and emotion. So the minute any organ in your body imbalances, a colour shows on your face. The minute any organ in your body imbalances, an odour is emitted from your body. And again, the sound of your voice becomes inappropriate, and your emotions become inappropriate. So there are 4 classic ways where the body mind is ready to say something's wrong. And the pulse is also is another way.
So a 5-element acupuncturist becomes an astute observer, wouldn't you say?
Oh yes, oh yes, absolutely.
Can't be one without being a good observer. Can you explain the pulses a little bit to me? How is it possible that you can tell things from the pulses?
Well, there are 12 organs in our body. As you know, the heart, small intestines, the bladder, the kidney, circulation, sex, reheater, gallbladder, the liver, the lungs, the colon, stomach and the spleen. And each of those organs has a position on what we call a radial artery, a specific position, which gives you a reflex of how that organ is working. So we can palpate, shall we say, here, and tell exactly how the small intestine is functioning, and then a little deeper how the heart is functioning, and then the gallbladder, and then the liver, and so on and so on. So we could tell by palpating whether the organ is hyper-functioning, hypo-functioning, and how imbalanced it is. Because very simply what we endeavour to do is to create a balance and harmony. And once you create the balance and harmony, the disease goes, no matter what you call it. Calf arthritis, rheumatism, whatever it is. Once you restore the harmony and the balance, the body overcomes the disease, mental, physical or spiritual. So you see, there's no man or woman on the face of the earth that can cure anything, no matter who they are. That's something we need to understand. You know, the person themselves and nature does the curing, not man nor woman. We can assist nature to overcome the disease, but we can't do it.
It's interesting because I've heard a lot of healers say that same thing.
That's true.
Well, I would just want to pursue a little bit more about the pulses. How can you teach somebody what you just said, where specifically the pulses are? I mean, is it that laid out? Is that much of a roadmap as to where pulses are?
Oh yeah.
There is.
Yes, it is. The difficulty comes in the fact that one has to restore the sensitivity of your fingers. Because again, like all the gifts that we had, we discard them. We have a tremendous ability to virtually talk with your hand, touching. But, you know, when you get students, the only touching they ever did was sort of scratching and rubbing. Now, we've got to spend ages and ages and ages redeveloping the sensitivity to pick up what it is that the pulses are trying to tell them. As again with odour. I mean, I said when an organ becomes imbalanced, then an odour is emitted from your body. Nobody bothers to smell. So you got a straight A in smelling in university? Nobody has, no. See, all these gifts we had, we throw them away. And now we have to get them back again.
So we have the ability to smell better than we do.
Goodness, yes. I mean, when students start, they get that close to the patient and you know, it takes ages. But as time goes by, they start to redevelop that smell. And you can pick it up, you know, from, you know, at least, you know, 3 feet away from the patient.
I want to keep moving on, so we're going to skip over some things. But I'd like to get to now you have a diagnosis and you determined that there is something wrong, and you want to affect change in the body, help nature take its course. And acupuncture uses needles to do that. And why the needles, and how was that discovered that is a way of unblocking the energy paths in the body?
Oh, that's a very, very long question to answer sensibly. The only thing you can say is that there are these meridians and pathways which go from various meridians and channels which carry the vital key energy that goes to the organ. For example, this is the heart meridian up here. Okay, and so there are acupuncture points along that meridian. And we can put needles into those acupuncture points, slow your heart down. We can put needles into those acupuncture points and make your heart race. We're not touching your heart. We're touching the energy that controls that organ. So that's what we do with all 12 organs. We're controlling the energy that goes to them to get them to balance the way nature ordained they should do.
I see.
Simple again, you see. Very, very difficult to do, but it is basically simple. A child of 7 can understand it.
And this was discovered 2,000 years ago.
Yeah, definitely.
Hasn't changed since.
Definitely.
And why the needles? Is it necessary to use a needle?
It's more convenient now. They used stone once, and then they used bamboo, and they used all manner of different things. They used gold needles once, and silver needles, all of this sort of thing. A lot of history about it. But stainless steel needles are efficient, painless, easy to sterilise, although we throw them away now. We don't sterilise them. We use needles once and then discard them.
Is there a lot of pain associated with it?
Pain? No. It depends.
Would you like some water?
Some people will lie there and they won't flinch, they won't move. Other people lie there and they get very tense and oh. But by the time you go, it's over anyhow. But as regards pain, no, not as such. It's a discomfort occasionally. But as I say, if you go, it's gone. Because the needle's in and out in seconds.
And moxa? Why moxa and not
Moxa basically, again, is another way of warming the energy in order to get it ready to move more easily. And so you moxa first, and then you needle, and then the energy moves much more rapidly and much more quickly.
Oh, okay. That's good. And could you, I've read about the law of cure. Could you just touch on that a little bit, or what that is?
Well, it is a law again. It just simply means that when you're treating a patient, you don't hope they're getting better, that if they're following the law of cure, you know they're getting better. That means the disease comes from within inside to out, comes from above to below, and the symptoms come in the reverse order from which they first started. Very simple law again, very, very effective, and one way you know your patient is getting cured and not palliated. So that's an integral part of classical 5-element acupuncture, is the law of cure.
Okay. Can we just touch slightly on this, the fantastic, I mean, that's the scenes you see the most, like coming out of China during the Nixon period, was anesthesia with acupuncture. I mean,
Yeah,
that's pretty fantastic stuff.
That was a godsend, because that turned more skeptics than anything. It really did, because it's true. You can put 2-3 needles into some part of a patient's body, and you can anaesthetize a complete area of the body where you can do a surgical procedure whilst they're fully conscious. And that there's no doubt. So the skeptics that said, this is a load of rubbish, had to stop and say, wait a minute, if it's a load of rubbish, how is it we can do this with 2 needles or 3 needles? And that caused a lot of people really starting to look at it seriously. So in a way, that was a godsend.
Just a couple more questions and I'll let you get out of here. I know you're tired. If a person is deciding to go see an acupuncture practitioner, what would you tell them?
Check their qualifications very thoroughly. You're putting the most precious gift that God ever gave you, that's your body, your mind and your spirit, in somebody else's hands. Now, if you were going to buy a car, where would you go? If you're going to buy a house, where would you go? If you're going to do something for your body, do the same. Seek out, find out. Don't just put your body and your mind and your spirit in somebody else's hands. So investigate the person fully. Their training, their qualifications. Go and see some of their patients. What's the rush? Ask their patients what they think. Ask them what's happened to them. And then if you're happy, then along you go.
Would you recommend 5-element acupuncture over?
Of course I do. That's obvious. That's my life's work. That's my belief. That's what I've been spreading and using and teaching and practicing for 53 years.
Why would you recommend it over others?
Because it's the ultimate system of acupuncture. It's the one that was originally founded, as I said, 2,000 years ago, that have been discarded along the way, been bastardized along the way. The reason why is because it's a lifelong study. See, I've been doing it 53 years. The only thing I know is how little I know. But I enjoy it. I enjoy it. Every day is a new day. With the other systems, you can learn it in 3 months. How boring.
You want a little sip of water? Do you have, yeah, we're finishing up now. Do you have something, a story you want to tell us about acupuncture, or maybe with the masters, or something that you've experienced with a patient over the years that is kind of fascinating? Is there anything that comes to mind?
No, there are millions and millions, well, millions, that's ridiculous. Many, many hundreds and hundreds of stories I could tell about what has happened to patients. No, I don't like doing that, because first of all, I don't like talking about patients. We have 100% confidentiality. And secondly, I don't do anything. I only assist the patients to do and to make their recovery. So I like to keep it that way.
Would you agree with me then that, like the body is still a pretty mysterious thing? I mean, we've learned a lot about it, but we haven't learned very much yet.
We're learning a little more about the body, but where our biggest investigation's got to go is to the spirit and then to the mind, because even when you use the word spirit now, a lot of people, do this and they don't know what you're talking about. They have fantasies, ideas of some mysticism or something, and the spirit is just as real as what the physical body and the mind is. But we're ignorant in that field. And so this is where we need the growth, the learning and the education. And so there's a lot of scope there, a lot of scope. But the body, yes, we're learning more and more about it as time goes, but there's still a lot more we have to learn. Yeah.
Is there anything else you'd like to tell me or say about acupuncture?
No, other than the fact that I am extremely privileged to realise that I came into this was viewed virtually as somebody that was practicing witchcraft and mysticism, and having founded the first school in the Western world and founded the first school in America. I'm very fortunate to have lived to see the complete transformation of this system of medicine, and the many thousands of students that are now practicing, helping people who are sick, who could perhaps not have been helped any other way. So I'm blessed.